Welcome to Lighten Up Talk Radio with Michael and Lee. Join us with topics that wake up the connection to your soul. You can listen to us at lightenuptalkradio.com. Hello, everybody. It's Sunday, October 28th, and welcome to another episode of Lighten Up Talk Radio. We have a special guest here today. Lee happens to be on vacation this week, and we have the lovely Michael Braswell here.
I think I've about recovered from our pre-program warm-up.
I know, we've been giggling and laughing, and we actually have food at our table that we can munch on while we're on the show today.
We did take them out of the bag so you wouldn't hear the ruffling. But...
It's a little bit of a twist today. So it's called the M&M show.
There you go.
Michael, you said
which
that.
Which M am I?
You're the green M, and I'm the blue M.
Very good. The colorful M's.
Yeah.
Glad to be on. I appreciate you letting me do it.
Well, we're so glad you're here. It's always a blast, and so grateful for all the just beautiful meditations that you've been sharing on the toolbox section of our show. And I think you said you may have another one coming today.
We'll see what Spirit has in mind.
Sounds wonderful.
Yep.
Well, before the show, we started just chatting about what topics were kind of on our heads and our hearts this week, and we actually chimed in with one that we both had been thinking about. And I know I was sitting on the bed yesterday at home, and the thought came into me about ego, the whole concept of the ego and all of that. And you said the similar thing happened to you, huh?
Yes. Ego it seems to be something that either today or maybe in the future it'll be on the program.
Well,
so
we'll see where we go. Why don't we pick a card today? You want to do it, or you want me to do it?
Why don't you do it?
I'm really drawn to the purple cards today. These are the daily guidance cards that I'm now shuffling from Doreen Virtue. So let's see what we get today.
You look very experienced there shuffling that deck, by the way.
Oh, really? I picked the Innocence card, and it says, "Beloved one, everyone is guiltless in truth, as no one can alter God's handiwork of perfection. Give us your feelings of heaviness, so we can lighten your load. Give us any guilt, anger, or blame that may shroud your loving outlook. Enjoy the peace within your heart once more." And the picture is of this beautiful angel, with the colors of indigo, blue, aquamarine, and green, on the wings, and it's a feminine angel holding a baby right up to her face. So, wow, that's a powerful one. You want to take a look at that card?
Yeah, the energy on the card's unreal.
That's a really powerful topic, and even in the essence of the thoughts that we were sharing about the ego, that no matter what we do, we are truly innocent from the perspective of the divine. But we can't ever be taken out of that pure innocence that we were created in.
Makes you wonder, too, if you come down under the control of ego. If ego is driving you at that point and not in a spiritual way, are you innocent?
That's an interesting thought.
So, see, the ego would bring up a lot of different questions when you start discussing that.
You know, that takes me to a thought that I was sharing with you about my week, and my mother, who I know she would happily allow me to use her as an example of some of the things that we were talking about. And also this experience that I'm sharing, I've also had it in my life as well, where my ego would want to distract me, tries to distract me from doing what my heart really wants to do, because it... let me tell the story, and then we'll get into the details.
Please do.
So I was in my room, and I was feeling... It was like a pressure cooker in the house. Very sensitive to energies, as is the other M here, and it was as if I could just feel the house it was building up, when the resistance was getting really intense. And my mother was on the phone, and she got onto one call to the next and to the next. And I felt that, and heard her talking lightly, but I could feel the energy building in the house. And it was really overwhelming for me to keep feeling that. And then realizing we're also in the full moon energies, which is intense as it is. So anyway, I felt inspired to talk with her about it and kind of get into what was going on. And long story short, she had been wanting to go into her room all day to clean and organize and all of that stuff. And there was a part of her, that ego, that kept chiming and said, no, you don't want to do that. It's not very fun to go clean your room and go and do all those things, even though there's a real strong part of her that knows how much better she would feel if she did it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ego, sometimes those thoughts that want to keep us safe within the confines of our belief systems is oftentimes a term that I've used before, or the confines of the repetitive thought patterns that we've had in the past.
Yes.
And so it's interesting, and I know I've had very similar experiences in my life in a lot of different ways where I'll do the same thing and procrastinate and all of those things. So this innocence card really comes back to me because, sometimes we don't feel innocent when that ego chimes in.
That's very true. That's very true. The ego, you hit the central point a while ago, I believe. The ego's central, its one primary purpose is to protect you, self-preservation. And it does that within your belief system that it's helped build. And if you start getting outside that belief system, or you start doing something that the ego thinks it's losing control, it brings you back in, or attempts to, using illusion. And illusion is a subject in itself you ought to consider. But spirituality is something that the ego routinely fears. Because when you're on a spiritual path, you're not as much in ego all the time. You're in ego a lot because just to survive. But when the ego sees you're on a spiritual path, it doesn't know what to do. And it brings in illusions such as, I'm not good enough to be on my spiritual path. I'm not worthy to be healed by God and do work for God. And working with your ego, you never can get rid of your ego, of course, or you'd perish. But you can talk to your ego enough that it will not fear spirituality anymore, because you get your ego to cooperate with you. So I think it's very interesting. I could talk all day long on ego and illusions and bringing in free will to even augment that.
Well, let's go for it. Sounds like a great...
Oh, it's awesome. Let me pick a card.
Okay.
I feel compelled to go here.
Ooh, you got the archangels.
Claircognizant. Did I say that right?
Claircognizance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Archangel Uriel, pay attention to thoughts and ideas that come to you as they are answered prayers. When I first started getting onto my spiritual path, I noticed there was a difference in voices. The loud voice was my ego. The soft voice, the whispered voice, that if you weren't really paying attention, was the spiritual.
The still small.
It was your intuitive, the real small voice. And I started finally realizing that and started listening to the softer voice. And I noticed the more I listened to that small, soft voice, the less my loud voice called to me. And I think that's when my ego started cooperating with me on the spiritual path. So that card means a lot to me. That word claircognizance to me is an intuition. And intuition goes by a lot of words. Channeling is nothing but receiving intuitive information from God and from the spirit world. And I think my ego finally, I worked on it for years, and it finally started cooperating with me. But the ego itself uses free will to. Well, let me go back a little bit. In the creation of the world meditation I did, it told about how there was a belief that before a spirit came here, there was a contract written, and in that contract was exactly what that spirit wanted to teach, what that spirit wanted to learn, but also the primary thing, the reason the world's here, what that spirit wanted to experience. And along with that, other spirits could enter into that contract to appear sometimes, somewhere, for X amount of time in that incarnation to help experience what that spirit wanted to experience, negatively or positively. And one thing that helps more than anything to color and to enhance those experiences is the free will. The free will adds flavor. It's like adding spices to a meal or seasoning to a meal. It just makes it so much better. And I don't believe that free will is totally true in that you can do anything you want to at any time. Not precognizance, but predestination to me means you know what your experiences are going to be. You know what you're going to teach and what you're going to learn. But the free will adds a little timing factor in there. And it adds some different experiences from the side that you can bring in to really enhance your contractual things that you want to do. And the ego knows that. Let me give you an example of, I recently received that some things I'd been channeling was coming from the Judas spirit. Now, Judas was an energy and an incarnation that people look back on in disdain. There's hatred, there's treachery involved, and if you stop and think about it, that was only here in that experience. When Jesus came down, of course, he had the contractual things that he wanted to do. And Jesus, in my mind, was God just coming down in human form to be able to, all that magnificence of his, be able to interact with us. Now, Judas was a spirit that entered into Jesus' contract to come down and to betray him and to do exactly what he had to do to get Jesus to the cross. Now, if you stop and think about a spirit that would do that would come down to earth, go through all of that experience of betrayal and hatred, and end that incarnation on a tree hanging by his neck, what kind of love does that show that spirit had to do that for Jesus and for God? So in my heart, Judas was an energy, and still is an energy, of so much love and compassion and caring, because that energy and that spirit agreed to come down and do all of that, knowing exactly what was going to happen. When we are on earth and we in an incarnation and we want to come down, let's say, and experience frustration, we want to come down and experience guilt. And those are the two, I believe, emotions that the majority of spirits, for some reason, entered into, because you can, just in talking to people all day long, those are the two prevailing, guilt and frustration. Not only do they set up and have guilt and frustration in their lives, but they set up what you just mentioned before, repetitive behavior. Keeps them in those emotions, keeps them in that. They, on one hand, they may enter into relationships with the same type people that they know is going to fail before it starts. So that perpetuates and keeps that guilt and that feeling of frustration going. Things happen along their life that they feel guilty about. They take on the guilt when they were victims. A victim is not a guilt factor. It's just an action factor. And the ego helps do that. Every time that you start to get out of the frustration or the guilt feeling, someone is helping you. You may get on your spiritual path to get out of that. The ego brings up an illusion. No, you are guilty. You were there. It is your fault. Or you only deserve that type person in your relationship. So it just keeps you into that.
Mm-hmm.
And does that make any sense to you?
Absolutely. I'm following you totally.
And Judas, for some reason, about 10 years ago, tried to come into my life and channel through me and give me information. And at that time, I didn't understand. I wasn't on my spiritual path fully. And now he's come back. And when I felt that Judas spirit, and it was last night when Lee and another friend, Ramona, were at the center, the Utopia Holistic Healing Center. And all of a sudden, I got there that the spirit that I'd been channeling a couple of times and had received some help on the meditations was the Judas spirit. And I almost got dizzy, and I told Lee that. So I'm blessed being able to channel and receive information from a spirit that I perceive and that I totally believe in my heart has so much compassion and love. And probably a lot of the things that I've gotten from Judas and didn't know at the time has helped me see the patterns, the repetitive patterns that we set up. Mm-hmm. And they're hard to break. Mm-hmm. And if you don't break them in this incarnation, guess what? You get a return ticket. 2 for 1. You come back and try it again. So, but that's what the card kind of made me think, was the repetitive patterns of coming back and really suffering through trying to break what you've set up to experience if it's in a negative factor.
It is quite an interesting thing to think about, how that just in a day-to-day fashion, how we go and can go in and out of those even awarenesses of, wait a minute, I have a choice right now to go down this road or this road. I'm hearing this choice and this choice. And I've found in my life that the more that I just get calm and still with the decisions that come up, that it's a lot easier to decipher, because oftentimes the ego, which is taking you in the pattern mode of, oh, this feels safe because you've done it repetitiously. There's a safety in that, and it feels safe in that. But I've found that when it's really time, there's time for that lesson that's been learned from that as you were talking about, we've set up our contract before, and to learn certain things. It's all of a sudden when I have an inner there's an energy shift within me that'll go, wait a minute, I don't want to do that anymore. You know what I'm saying? There's some kind of shift that happens where, okay, I've been down that road so many times, and now I don't need to go down that road anymore. It's time to move on to something else, move on, expand the boundaries, and do something else. And I've really, through my life experience, I feel like now more than ever, I really get that, because I've broken through so many of my old safety box, so to speak, that box that I was in for many years. And, I'm sure all of life is, breaking through different levels of that. But it's so much clearer, the sense of direction with it. Especially this last year, it's really clicked in for me even more.
Are those aha moments for you, or have you gotten to where they're real easy?
There's still aha moments in it, but there's still aha moments in the ones where I have not been aware of what I was doing. Mm-hmm. But then there's a lot of them that are, oh yeah, it's become pretty easy. Yeah. But there's still aha moments in areas that I haven't even realized where growth was even available. And I feel like I'm in a place in my life personally in the place of the growth that's coming now is completely outside of any preconceived notions that I've had or expectations. Like, I feel like I've gone through the expected growth stage.
Yes.
And I've broken into the, I have no idea.
How does it feel being in the no idea? How does that feel to you? At first,
it was kind of scary, to be honest. I mean, it was kind of scary because there's a part of me, the ego part of me, that wants to know what I need to do in a situations.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm finding that it's time for me to confront that part of the ego and say, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to get afraid by breaking through barriers of unknowns. I can feel safe and secure in knowing that the divine has this plan for me, that I even was a part of writing the contract, my spirit, and that I can just go along for the ride and make the choices that help and keep me on the path of the highest calling for me. I heard this somewhere and it just popped into my mind. I don't know if it was at one of the OMA sessions, if it was you that said it or somebody else. But it was that we really stay stationary in our life. But all the things kind of come to us. It was an interesting thought. I'd heard someone else say it kind of similarly. Let's see if we can, does that resonate to you at all? I think it was at OMA, where we have a place in our life, like we're stationary and life is moving underneath us.
I got you.
And it comes to us. And if we were to just be still and be, that all of the choices and things come to us.
That makes sense, because if you, with your ego and your free will, think about how hard it is to stay still. And by the way, if you don't remember where you heard that statement, I'll claim it.
Okay.
It was me. I think it was Alma. But think about that. Energy, everything is energy anyway. Mm-hmm. All of us, everything you see, the table, the microphone. And in a creation of nothing but energy, it would be simple just to stay.
Oh, gosh. Uh-huh.
And everything flow by you. Because if we're all part of the one, then nothing is moving and everything's moving. If you think about it, both are true at the same time. Mm. And in that oneness, everything that's ever happened is happening, is going to happen.
That's beautiful.
And everything is knowledge too. The Cosmic records, you name it, you already know it. But it is so hard because of your ego and because of the free will and because of the richness of the experiences that a spirit human being goes through down here, that it is very hard, I would think, for it. It was for me. It really was for me. Because in my younger days, I was a party guy. I was a really, really wild party guy. And I wasn't still at all. And it was only later that when I started hearing that small voice and started wondering what that was, and I noticed I stopped partying as much, and it kind of filtered down like through a funnel, until at the end I didn't party much at all, but I was having more fun and had more joy in my life than in all the partying together. And it was because of the way I felt about myself, I think. When I was partying, I was out looking for people to tell me how I was. I was looking for those compliments. I was looking for those people to tell me how good I was at different things. Why? Because I didn't feel that way myself. I had a real low self-esteem. And a lot of people that aren't on their spiritual path have that. And that's one of the first things that they conquer, is that self-worth value when you step on your spiritual path. So tell everybody to really work on, and I'll tell you too, really work on your low self-esteem. You are worthy. Because when you stop and think about it, God made you in His image, and God doesn't do junk. You've heard that so many times. So how could you be unworthy of anything if you have God within you?
You know what's interesting about that? There's two Michaels at the table, and we both had worked through a lot of self-worth type of things. Yeah. And I do believe that I wanted that name when I came in here as a reminder that of being the strength of God instead of weakness, as the name stands for.
What is you have a middle name or
Schaefer?
Schaefer, Michael Schaefer.
Mm-hmm.
See, mine's James Michael, and I've
Oh,
always, for some reason, gone by Michael. Before I moved up into the mountains, I was always known as Mike. Everybody knew me as Mike. Automatically, when I moved to the mountains, people started calling me Michael.
Wow.
Not at my request. Just started calling me
Wow.
Michael. And I didn't realize that till later, and I look back on it. But I still get called by old friends Mike. But I thought that was kind of nifty after I really started. Wow, how did that happen?
That's fascinating
Yeah, it
that
is.
you said that as well, because I have an experience that goes back early on where there were certain people in my life that would always want to call me Mike. And at first I didn't really like it, but then I let it go for many years. And when I worked in the engineering field and all that for many years, that name really became commonplace, even though it didn't resonate to me at all. And then it wasn't till years later that all of a sudden I actually had to tell people, no, my name is not Mike, it's Michael. And there was some switch that went along with that with me. It was like claiming the name in the area where I didn't feel like I was totally myself, like I had to claim it back.
I think the energy there is energy. And when you come down, I think your name is probably in your contract as well that you're going to get. And if you do not have that energy being given to you, like you did, you remind them. Mine apparently was just automatic. Later in my life, it happened. And then I started feeling, my whole energy changed. I noticed that when people started calling me Michael. James, I never resonated with. It's a good name. Has some really good connotation, really good energy about it, but it just wasn't for me this time, I think.
Isn't that interesting?
I do think it is.
Yeah, that's really
I'm thinking about something. The silence you hear is thinking.
fascinating thoughts we're having here today. While you're thinking,
Go
I have
ahead.
another interesting thought that I've heard this many times. It may be in Wayne Dyer's thing that he has with the ego. He'll often say the ego edges God out. Edges God out, EGO, which is an interesting thought, but I definitely had a breakthrough today with a really clarity with that, sometimes I believe that that's true when we get caught in the patterns and the cycles of the ego, of staying within that, then we do edge God out. However, I've gone a little bit deeper with this within myself to see that those cycles of coming up against the ego allow us to learn and move to another vibrational space. And if we didn't have them in this human place, it just wouldn't work. It's just totally divinely set up the way it is.
What I hear you saying then, if I heard you correctly, is the ego was created with that in mind, to help either with you blocking out God at times to make you later go strongly toward your spiritual path, or to make you realize what you're blocking.
Yes. In a beautiful words, yes.
Just a tool.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then
I'm getting chills.
Then your
so we're on to something here.
Your ego is a spiritual tool.
Oh, I love it.
Think about it.
I love switching the connotation because a lot of that connotation with ego is very strongly towards the negative, at least the way that I experience it. And this talk today is helping me even shift it to, oh, wait a minute. I love that. It's a spiritual tool. I love it.
Now, I had some thoughts, and I was hesitant on letting these words come through, on something a little bit different. And it goes back to your contract, why the earth was set up, and why the spirits wanted it that way. But the thoughts I got, and these are just thoughts for thought. If the earth was created because the spirits wanted a place that they could go experience what they couldn't experience in the light, which is joy, love, and peace, then everything that happens in earthly carnation or divine, that's what it was created for by God. Now, if that's the case, then there's no right or wrong here. And if there's no right or wrong, then there should be no place for guilt or frustration. And if that's the case, then what we're all under, all who have negative emotions of any kind, we're all under simply the trap that the ego has set up for each of us. Because those things really don't exist. And when I got that, I thought about that and said, wow, is that right or wrong? And then I said, well, it can't be right, it can't be wrong. Well, then what's it mean if there's no guilt and there's no anger in reality, in whatever reality each incarnation here has? Then why have we got capital punishment if there's no guilt here? Why do we have judgment when we shouldn't have if there's no guilt? And then it came to me, everyone that comes to earth incarnation, the only person you're responsible for here is you. Everyone else you're accountable for. You're accountable to. You have kids. You're accountable to them because you provide for them and you get them to an age where they're self-sufficient. Then you're only accountable for them as parents if they ever need anything from you or they need your love and support. Of course, you're always accountable for that, but you're not responsible for them. You're only responsible for you. So then if you follow that train of thought, then why are all these people suffering that feel so responsible for other people in their lives when it's not spiritually that for them to do? Does that make any sense?
It makes total sense to me. And I like your words too. They resonate to me. It's like self-created suffering.
Yes.
Where that cycle, and when you were saying that, I kept being taken on the journey of this is the dividing line that we're going through right now, the shift in 2012. That the energies are, and I'm getting a lot of feeling and sensations talking about this, are shifting within us such that we can experience it in a different way, to where we can truly experience what it's like in a bigger capacity, the earth capacity, to just be, as you were saying, responsible for ourselves and be okay with what others are going through, but be able to lend a helping hand, to lift them out if they need it, but to not take on the burden associated with that. So many people that I have been around in my life, particularly a lot of which are significantly in the, I'm just going to call it the enlightenment spiritual path, that really are stepping in that arena, are, gosh, everyone that I know that is in that arena is experiencing having to let go of responsibility for others. And I am seeing it in so many ways in my life that it just, when you were talking about it, I'm like, there's such a huge shift with this going on right now.
And when that responsibility is let go, then the emotions like guilt and anger and regret that are associated with that responsibility should begin to let go as well.
Oh, I'm getting total chill bumps with that.
There's so much that if you really think about, well, the perpetual actions and programs that we set up to remain in these negative emotions, that's nothing but that, a self-induced punishment. And if you follow self-induced punishment, does that mean that hell is hell on earth and it's created only in our own minds? Because if God created everything, then maybe what we know as Satan is symbolic maybe of what the hell that we give ourselves. That when we take on the guilt, we take on the anger, we take on the lack of love, we take on all of this negative stuff that just weights down our self-worth to nothing. And depression being the umbrella that all comes under, then maybe we create our own Satan, we create our own hell in our own minds by what we do here, what decisions we make. See, free will not only enhances and enriches the positive, but it does the same thing to the negative. It makes them a lot heavier, a lot deeper. And the ego is so wonderful to master at using illusions to even weight you down further. It's a wonder any of us can survive at all, if you really think about it.
Wow. Yeah.
If you don't get to that spiritual path, then this incarnation is very, very sad.
Gosh, that was powerful. When you said the word Satan, I just all of a sudden started thinking there's something with that. And then I heard someone angry toward another.
Satan, God said, and I forget the verse, somewhere in the Bible, God used the word Satan, small s, to describe someone. And Satan, the word itself, the Hebrew word for Satan means, I think, light bearer. It doesn't even mean what we know it now as Satan, the demon.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. And somewhere along the line, I think man had to put that name onto darkness. And again, what is darkness? Darkness is nothing, in my opinion, but the absence of love.
This is like walking in a dark room. You can turn the switch on.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating that it's like this whole earth really was set up as a duality so that we could see, and going through, whether you want to call it the Satans or the hells or whatever that you can experience in the body, in this place, it's through those experiences that are doorways, if we allow them to be, to the light bearer, of which you just said the true meaning of Satan is. With behind that is a doorway, if we so allow it to be. Those negative experiences, the hells of life, so to speak, can be us a doorway straight back into the light.
It's almost as if God played a private joke when he created the earth. The spirits in their contracts and everything believed that they were going to come down and do just what was on the contract. But you used duality, that word. What if God himself says, all right, if they're going to go down to what I've created for them and experience what they have in their contract that they want to experience, learn, and teach, I'm going to set up that potential of duality, and they're going to have to know and suffer the consequences that they did not think about for their contract and their enhancement with free will and their ego.
That's powerful stuff now.
We're getting deep here.
We are
we ready?
really
Are we
deep.
ready for this?
Y'all may have to listen to this a couple times. I think I'm going to have to go back and listen to this a couple times. And another thought, I just hear the angels going, blah, 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 singing their songs, because they always, and I've heard this so many times from the angels, how, and I believe when I listened back to one of the channelings that one of us did, they said, our prayer for you is that you see how wonderful and blessed living in a human body and a human life is.
And I believe that to be true. I've enjoyed it.
I have too.
I don't remember, without being under hypnosis, I don't remember another life. I know I've had them, and I believe in them. I also believe that there's a potential not only to have past lives, but parallel lives. So that any time that particular life you're in, all of the lives that could exist with every decision point you make in this current life are also out there. And you're receiving information from those as well. And maybe some of the things that you perceive as information from past lives are nothing but information from your parallel lives based on the decision you did make at that given point. So
that's so fascinating. It's going to be interesting transitioning back over and remembering all of total clarity. The part of it that's veiled to us is pretty something.
I think it's going to be, when we do see it, the full truth, I think we're going to see that it's so simple. That one of the traps that is set up for incarnations here on earth is making it complicated, overanalyzing, getting into the mind.
Ooh, I know about that one.
When acceptance is so simple. Yeah. Well, you were an engineer, and I was 30 years, I was 30 years computer background, so we're very analytical people.
Yes.
And we fight, trying not to get that a lot, but I know we easily, I do anyway, fall into trying to analyze things. Lee tells me that all the time. So quit analyzing.
Oh, I know exactly about that. And there's good times to analyze, I've learned for myself, and then there's times that it doesn't do me any good at all. And every day I know I'm getting clear on that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that the two are sitting here talking about spirituality and spiritual paths are two analytical geeks from the past, you know. Should be two poets or two philosophers, which we both are as well.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Well, we've just about hit our 45-minute mark for the show today, and I tell you, it has been a wonderful show, getting into the deepness that we've gotten into today.
Mercy.
I'm definitely going to have to go back and listen.
It's been a blessing being on the air with you. I really appreciate it, Michael.
Well, I've had a blast too, Michael. And I send in lots of love to all you out there in this week. I did want to say that the energies out there this week have been really intense for a lot of us. And just to be really mindful to take time for yourself and be gentle with yourselves out there.
Good words. Good words. Remember, Lord, we love you.
And so it is. Talk to you next time.
See ya.